So hello, good evening. I think we can make a start. Good evening to everyone who's with us tonight. Welcome to the Accenture webinar on Workday Overview. The session will be recorded, so if you feel uncomfortable being included in the recording, you may drop off from this call. You may also post your questions anytime in the chat window found in the right hand of the screen. And should you want to post anonymously, just tick the post as anonymous box found below. All right, so we'll get started. Let me just, okay. So for tonight, we'll be discussing your introduction for Workday or Workday overview. Okay. My name is Daryl Deang. I am a Workday consultant from Accenture. I've been around Workday for about 6 years, doing many different roles. Primarily, majority of my experiences with Workday implementations for different clients. So tonight I want to go through what Workday does, how it looks like, give you an introduction to it, and also give a bit of information about what we do as consultants, as Workday consultants. But before we go deep into the application, we go into the details of the application, I want to introduce you to my 3 clients. We'll discuss 3 personas first. All right, let's go to the first one. Our first client is Ben. He is representing a manager from our client company. He is an account manager who is very goal-oriented. He loves his team, so he wants his team to be able to take their vacations when they can, but at the same time, he's also passionate about achieving their goals, their targets, their operational targets. So he has some few frustrations about their current setup. One is that he has very limited access to data. He always reaches out to HR whenever they need access to their leave information, or whenever he has a need for their team data, like their team demographics. Whenever he tries to open up new positions to get more team members in, he always needs to work with HR, and it's never been able to do it on his own, right? So that's one of his goal, is to be able to understand whatever the impact, whenever someone applies for a leave in his team, he wants to be able to understand it, whether that will have an impact in terms of their daily operations, their daily delivery, before he makes any decisions. He wants to be able to see more information and be able to access it on his own time without bothering anyone. So he wants to be able to see candidates' data. If he has open positions on his team, he wants to be able to really do the analysis on his own, schedule interviews, see who's the best match in terms of skills and experience, and compare candidates across the organization before he makes any decision. So this is Ben Young, our manager. So the next persona we're going to look into is Stacy Duffy. Stacy is going to play the role of the HR specialist. She's a veteran HR specialist. She loves her work. She's very passionate about it. She sees a lot of things to improve in terms of their company setup. So one of her frustrations is that they track employee data manually. They use a spreadsheet. Whenever someone is hired into their company, they track them via Excel. And given that, it's very inefficient whenever they try to run month-end reports, year-end reports, quarter-end reports. It's very hard for her to do her job efficiently. It's also a waste of time because they use tons of hard copy documents. So whenever someone is requested to transfer to a different team, they route paper and go to the approver in person to have it signed and store that document in their 201 file. It's a lot of wasted time and manual effort for her. And lastly, their company is composed of 5 subsidiaries with more than 10 local offices. So she sees a lot of disconnects in terms of their processes. in their Manila location, they follow a different hiring process compared to their Cebu location, as an example. So there's a lot of potential for harmonization in terms of their organization. The third point of view that we're going to look into is the point of view for Diane Andrews. She is playing the role of an employee who is newly hired into our client company. So even if she's new, she already has a lot of questions in her mind in terms of the company's process. So currently she doesn't have any idea in terms of how to update her employee information. If she is trying to see how much vacation balance she has and what are her employee benefits, and when she is trying to process changing her employee data change, she doesn't know how to initiate it or where to go to or who to reach out to. So one of her wish lists is to be able to submit changes for her own information, be able to do it efficiently, especially now that a lot of guys are working remotely. It's very difficult to reach out to HR if the only need is to be able to submit documents to process personal information. So she wants really a more streamlined process to handle her personal requests. All right. So given those three scenarios, I'd like to introduce Workday to you. So Workday is actually a cloud-based system for finance, HR, and planning. It's on the cloud, so there's no local server. It brings all these three areas together in one seamless, agile system that the client can use to build their business forward, transform their organization, simplify their processes, standardize their policies and process. I mentioned finance, HR, and planning. So for planning, they have workforce planning, financial planning. A couple of examples I can give you is about attrition, headcount, trends, or trends in terms of attendance. Workday is able to give some smart analytics in terms of the patterns that comes and goes in terms of, say, your team's monthly overtime or your team's absences, for example. Or what is the impact in terms of when someone goes and resign? What is the impact to your team's budget, for example? For finance, Workday has financials and financial planning, expenses, audit, internal controls. And then for HR, ultimately, what we call core HCM, human capital management, everything from before the employee joins the company, the recruitment process, all the way until he retires or leaves the organization, everything in between it, hiring, the employee's compensation data, promotions, transfers, all the stuff that the employee would change on their own, or what we call the employee self-service, changing their personal data, government information, government ID, contact information. For managers, we have their analytics, their reporting, same for HR. And we have different other functional areas as well. Performance management, managing their succession plans, reviews, merit reviews for compensation, the yearly review cycle for compensation, managing their pay grade, pay information, learning, employee learning, recruiting, like I said earlier, managing the candidate life cycle from basically applying all the way until he's interviewed. We do the background check. We do the offer process. Workday allows companies to make things more futuristic. So a lot of the hard copy documents, we can put it away and do everything within the system in the cloud in Workday. Right? So like I mentioned earlier, this is cloud-based, which allows our clients to access Workday either through their personal computer or laptops, or their tablets, or their mobile phone. So they can access it anywhere as long as they have permission to within what we configured during our implementation, and as long as they have connectivity. All right, and then we'll discuss the core principles for Workday. Number one is that it's delivered in the cloud. It's cloud-based. We don't have any local service for it. It allows continuous development, continuous change at all levels. It allows our clients to evolve and transform us, not only during our implementation, but after it, anytime they have organization changes. Workday is relatively very, very easy to update and transform together with their organization. So what do I mean by that? The initial implementation, it's also relatively quick. I've seen large projects go from sometimes 8 months to 12 months, sometimes quicker. Smaller projects, sometimes I've seen them being implemented within 6 months. So it really depends. Some of the smaller scale projects like change, some minor changes, it will also be quicker. So also Workday provides a twice a year update in terms of their new feature release and feature updates. So similar to your phones, right? We get, say for example, Apple, we get an iOS update every now and then. Workday does it twice a year, releasing new features for all of their modules, say new features for recruiting, improvements for hiring, termination process, all that stuff twice a year. So as a client, you also get that update and enjoy those features, new features as you go along. And then the power of one, there's only one source of data. So like I've mentioned earlier, a lot of clients I've seen before, they have many different systems. Say for example, they have a system for their employee data, but they have a separate system to track their time tracking, and another system to track their absences, and another system to pay out their employees, and another system to do their performance and goals. With Workday, everything is in one system. So it acts as your true master data. It's your only source of data entry, meaning your data has more integrity, it's more secured. Workday security model is very robust. What I mean is during our implementation, we talk about security a lot with the client. We go one by one. We discuss who in the organization can see what data and who in the organization can act and transact specific and can do certain transactions. Say, for example, your manager can see your compensation data, but not your HR partner, for example. Or your recruiter can see your government IDs, but not your manager. Workday is very flexible. It brings that framework into place wherein the only thing that we need to do is discuss with the client, come up with a framework, and solidify what we need to configure for them. And then ultimately, the community, they'll go into one version. What I mean by this is that as we implement Workday for a client or an organization, they'll use one version of Workday. If we make an upgrade, if we make a change to a configuration, they are gonna see that same change across, unless we do something that's very local, very specific. Sometimes we do that for local requirements. Say a local law requires only this location to have this particular step, this particular approval step in the business process. We do that, but for most of the time, everything here, we put in place a global standard, a global practice to streamline the HR financial practices of the company, of the client. So they'll all be on one version. All right, so we'll zoom in to HCM, or what we call the human capital management area for Workday. I've mentioned earlier we have financial management as well, planning. Now I want to zoom in on HCM. So HCM, as I mentioned, we're pulling together everything into one system: recruiting, compensation, talent and performance, learning, security, benefits is also in Workday, payroll is also in Workday. So everything is tied up into one system. If I recruited you using Workday, your candidate data will flow into Workday. The recruiters will see it, the managers will see it, HR will see it, ultimately until you pass all the recruiting process, offer, background check, all of that, until you get into hire. You get hired into the company, then we'll see your employee data, and then you'll have access to transact for your own personal information. Then as you get access to Workday, you can use your mobile phone or your tablet. Say, for example, you're out on vacation, you need to run some reports for some reason, you need to view your team's data, you're a manager, you need to access some information and answer your client who's asking for team information. You can run it off the bat. So it's very agile, it's very efficient for you. So again, Workday provides a lot of contextual insight in terms of data for your team, not only for your team, the entire company, since everything is in one system. Say, for example, you have a company based in the Philippines, but there are other companies, subsidiary outside of the Philippines. You have companies in the US, Asia, Europe, for example. Since everything is in Workday, the management, HR can run reports globally to combine those data together, run reports per region, or run reports in total to combine everything together. So they can see, okay, what's the headcount looking like for the entire company across the globe, or what's the data looking like only for Asia and not Europe, for example. So they have the full view of the entire employee data in terms of talent, labor, and cost. Because you have HCM as a whole, you have the compensation, you have payroll, you have benefits, and all that in your hand. So that's really the power of Workday. Scroll next. Workday really specializes in people experience. So what I mean by this is later on, I'll also walk you through a really quick demo, but Workday focuses a lot in terms of usability and ease of use. It will not drown you with numbers or graphs or tables. That's very confusing to see and understand. When you're trying to do some transactions and you're lost and do not know what to do within Workday, a lot of times I see my clients just type in some keywords in the search bar, and Workday will come up with a list of things that will ultimately allow you to pick which one of those transactions are you trying to do. It's relatively very intuitive, very easy to use. Later on, we'll dig deeper as I show you some quick demo. Also, it's since you can access it in your phone, you just have to download the mobile application. You can access it on your phone, your tablet, so you can bring it with you if you're an HR who travels a lot, goes to your client site a lot, or if you are a manager who also travels a lot, or you're working from home. Everything's in your hand in terms of data. Yeah, before we go to this, a couple of examples. So if you are a manager, or let's say you're the CEO and you're working with a potential client, and all of a sudden the client randomly asks questions about how does your company look like in terms of headcount, the allocation of headcount in terms of countries, your compensation, about compensation comparison across the teams, then it would be really I don't know, impressive. Just flip out your tablet, run some quick dashboards within a few clicks, show them something like this in front of you. It's real-time information on the fly, but it's really secured because only specific roles within Workday will have access to run it. And it will all depending on the design that we will work with the client on normally during the sessions prior to implementation. We work on them with who has access to run what. So this is just one example. Being able to run dashboards, what we call dashboards in Workday, and show quick illustrations and relatively easy to understand data. Yep. Another example is this one. It shows the client how much resources per skill is in the organization, the pipeline in terms of supply and demand, and just relatively the organization numbers per category, say for example, age group, numbers per age group or location and all that. So it's really good business analytics right at their hands. It's real time. So anytime that someone is hired or someone leaves the organization or someone transfers, all this information gets updated real time. Okay, so before we go to this information right here, what we do as Workday consultants, I like to show you a quick demo. Let me just reshare my screen. I should be showing you okay. So I'm sharing my screen right now, and we're looking at Workday. This is our demo environment, and no need to worry about anything. Everything here is just demo data, dummy data. Everything is fictitious data. So I just wanted to show you real quick how Workday looks like. This is the homepage. So as an employee, you'll be able to access this once you are hired and given a Workday account. So I'm logged in right now as one of our test dummy employees. She is a manager, and at the same time, she's an HR. So as a manager, I have real quick access to this sort of buttons right here, what we call worklets in Workday. They are a collection of reports and tasks. So as an example, let's go into my team management right now. All right. So from here, you'll have access to different information. So for example, you'll see some recent activity from your team. You'll know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hires have been completed recently. You'll be able to do a bunch of actions off of this one. If you want to do a job change for one of your team members, if you want to terminate someone, place someone on leave, if you run a couple of reports for your organization, your team, do a headcount report, you view your organization charts, very easy within a few clicks away. Matrix team, this is part of sort of like a dotted line relationship. So these folks that you see here has a dotted line relationship, an indirect relationship to you as their sort of like indirect manager. So Workday allows you to display this one as well. So by the way, everything here that you see here are configurable. This is just a demo that I'm showing you. Everything that if we want to remove this, we can do that. It's very easy to adjust. So your team here, everyone that works directly with you as their manager. So these are your direct reports. Anyone who's on leave at the moment, what your team is working on in terms of learning, who's doing a lot of training so far. You'll see them right here off the bat. You'll see a lot of all of the enrollments at the moment. And then what I've done earlier is to do a quick view of your team's upcoming time off. So in this particular example, you'll know that on May 27, tomorrow, you have two members who are basically going to be on time off. So Abigail and Anthony are not going to be working tomorrow and also on Thursday. So with this information, you'll know that whenever someone tries to apply for time off, you already have two from your team who's already out, then you'll be able to make some better decisions in terms of approving or talking to that person if you want to have him use a time off some other day instead. So this is just one quick example. Another example I wanted to show you is in terms of personal data. So this is one of the frustrations of our new hire earlier, Diane. She doesn't know how to change her own information. So with Workday actually solves that for her via very quick employee self-service. You just need to click on personal information button right here. And say, for example, she wants to change her personal data, this task right here. And then ultimately be able to change, let's say, let's give it a try. Let's change her marital status. Say, for example, this one was incorrect. She's not supposed to be married. She's still single. Right here. There's a lot of configurable things here. It's customizable things depending on what our client requires. If the client requires that before they submit, they need to put in some attachments, some supporting documents, then we're able to do that. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to go ahead and submit. Yeah, and then you'll see here that it routed to someone else. So they have the full view of the process. They're not left in the dark in terms of, have I submitted it already? Has it already been processed? Is it done? I'm not sure. So this answers their question. They know that, hey, it's not yet completed. It's still in progress. It's with the senior HR partner to approve. And the process will not be done until it's approved. So Workday brings that framework to the client. Everyone who's using Workday, whether they're from Cebu, they're from Manila, they're from another country, will follow this same process. Just an example again, will follow this same process whenever someone changed their marital status. And they know that whenever someone submits their change for marital status or address or contact information, it's going to route to the HR partner to approve. It's also very intuitive in terms of HR, of the HR's point of view in terms of using it. If I log in as the HR here, all right. So you'll notice that you can see some announcements here. So the client can provide some announcements. This is a good example. This COVID-19 Global Watch announcement. Any announcement for new hires, any emergency contact information that you want them to fill out. This really, really flexible. So as an HR, all you need to do is access your Workday inbox. So every time that you have something to work on, an approval that's waiting for you to do, or any task within Workday, it will fall under your Workday inbox right here. So anytime that something is routed to you, it will shoot you an email to your company email, and it will redirect you to Workday, to log into Workday and to work on this inbox item right here. So if you'll see here, this is the personal information change that Logan sent earlier. She can review this, whether this is correct or not. And again, if she requires some attachment to be included, then we can obviously do that, but she can approve it. She can send it back to Logan and say, hey, we're missing your attachment. We're missing your supporting document. And then send it back to Logan. She can add approvers as well. And we can add additional options here if you want her to be able to deny it, reassign it, so on and so forth. So that's basically some examples of the framework of Workday's business process functionality. Right, and then lastly, I'll go back again to our sample employee. So Logan earlier tried to view her team's upcoming time offs, but she then also wants to see her balances, her own information in terms of absences. So as a manager, she was already able to access information on the fly real quick without contacting HR, without reaching out to HR to give her some reports. She just logs into her personal computer or tablet. She's able to do it. If she goes here, click on absence. Let's give this a few seconds. All right. So in that worklet, she's able to view her balances depending on her leave plans. She's able to request absence, correct her absence. She's able to view all her balances right here. So if we click on this My Absence button right here, it's calculating a lot of dummy information inside our demo tenant. That's the reason why it's taking a bit to load. All right. So from here, on her own, she's able to see all her absence requests, any adjustments in terms of her balances, and all her balances as of the current date without routing for any approval. It's her own data, so she has access to it. That's basically the concept. Right here. Okay. And then in terms of any historical data, anything that she does in the tenant, if she accesses her worker history, she'll be able to see, okay, any previous transactions that she has done or any position related information about her, all her compensation history information, time off and leave, for example. It's taking a while. So yeah, this worker history is going to show everything to HR, to the manager, whoever has access to this particular view. any historical data about compensation, personal data changes, organization changes. If you've been transferred from one team to another, you'll see all the history here. Career and talent, anything, your benefit enrollment, goals, time off, absence requests. You'll see here everything, including the canceled ones, anything that's in progress, and you'll know why it's in progress. So you won't have any questions in terms of who is your request with. I just want to open this page and show you just real quick before we go back to the deck. If I view it from here, yeah. So this is same navigation within Workday. You'll see it's very straightforward. It doesn't contain just a bunch of numbers or a bunch of graphs. So it's like actually very similar to viewing Facebook. Profile in Facebook is when you're trying to view a worker record in Workday. You'll see a number of different tabs containing the different information areas that you want to see. So what I wanted to show you earlier was if I go into the history right here. It's here. So if I view the event, you'll know that it's in progress. And this is the request that you've made. You've made this request way back, March 26, but it's not yet approved by your manager. That's why it's still in progress. So everything here is really intuitive. If you're trying to search for, I don't know, organization, just type a keyword organization. Workday will return a bunch of things to you. If you don't really, you're unsure of what you need to do, so just try to search for a keyword team. Workday will try to return some options for you. Okay, so heading back to our presentation earlier. Now I want to step into what we do as Workday consultants. So we basically help our clients implement Workday. So we partner with them during their transformation period. We gather their requirements and ultimately customize, configure Workday to their requirements and implement it for them, deploy it for them. And also part of our services, we also do production support, application support for them. Tonight I'm gonna focus more on the implementation part. So this basically shows you our implementation methodology, wherein we have the plan phase. We basically covers the project planning, mobilization, team structure, and kicking off with the entire project team, implementation team, and the client team. For our architect phase, we normally do some discovery sessions with the client. By discovery, what I mean is that we sit with them, understand their current setup, their current system, what they use for. If we're implementing HCM, what is their current HR system, what is it, how is it used for, what are their current processes, the process in terms of hiring and all the other HR transactions. Make them understand Workday as well, so that they'll make better decisions once we get into design. So we cover the core concepts of Workday to them, so that they'll have a better grasp of the functionality and the concept of how Workday works. And then ultimately we do design sessions with them. This is where we basically gather all of their specific requirements in terms of compensation, what are all the allowance plans that they give to employees, what are the steps in terms of their separation process, onboarding process, job application process, everything that's in scope, all the modules that are in scope, we cover those in specific sessions to gather every single bit of requirement. Heading over to configuring prototype, we do a bit more sessions. So in the architect phase, we normally establish the global standard, the global process. If the company is, for example, a huge global company, and then we hold some separate localization sessions. What I mean by that is we try to cover for each location, we ensure that they are compliant in terms of local labor requirements, local laws. What's a good example? I don't know. If the country requires someone who's on probation to be notified 2 months in advance that his probation period end date is coming up, and the manager needs to be notified to make that discussion with the employee, then we go deep into those types of requirements. And we do run a confirmation session during the prototype phase. we build a prototype, we show it to the client, we do some iterations, we show it to the client and hear their feedback, see if it's working for them based on what we've understand so far. So we do it in a cycle, making sure that we improve cycle by cycle, making sure that we really understand everything that they're trying to give as part of their requirement. And then ultimately we do testing. We do end-to-end testing, payroll testing, integrations testing, all types of testing. We assist them during end-to-end testing. Then we get ready for deployment. We train our clients, we train the users, we train the managers, HR, make sure that they're ready for change that's coming up. It's a big change. Everything that they've been, for example, they've been using the HR system for more than 10 years. So everyone's been used to it already. It's going to be a big change now, going away with Excel, bringing them into the future with Workday. Everything now is in their hands, in tablets and all that. Manager now having able to access it on their own instead of asking HR to run for them. So it's a huge change a lot of times. So we prepare it for them, and then ultimately we deploy it. We go live, we celebrate with them, and then we work with them, we support them until they get stable. Here, so here's what I've given some examples earlier. So again, design and discovery. These are the main milestones. Just summarize it in this slide. Design and discovery, we multiple sessions, one after another, normally span a couple. I've seen some clients do discovery for over 2-3 weeks, depending on how complex and how big the implementation is and how new they are with Workday. So it may take more time. So really this one is just discovering each other. We discover what their requirements are, their setup is, and they understanding Workday more. And configuring, customize, again, the repetitive process of doing prototypes and doing it, demonstrating it to the clients. Testing and verify. We test all the functionalities. If they've said that their hire process is 10-step process, we configure 10 steps. If they want at the end of the process to send an email, automatic email to HR, then we configure that, for example. And then training transition is everything, all the preparation before we go live. Now, some examples with our life as Workday consultants. So I've been doing my work for about 6 years now, many different types of roles. So first one, it's really action-packed, as how I would want to describe it. It's never boring. Um, one day you could be sitting on your desk the whole day, trying to solve something, trying to make things work in terms of your prototype. The next day, you'll be showing that prototype, you'll be demoing it to your client, talking to them in front, talking to a room packed with HR managers, senior managers, showing them how Workday works. And then the next day, you could be teaching in a classroom, helping some new consultants come in. So you feel very, very independent, very in charge whenever you're in a project. It's like you feel, how I describe it as well, is point number 2, is you feel like a doctor. A lot of times they'll throw difficult questions at you. Daryl, is this how it's supposed to work? Is this how it's supposed to behave? I don't think this is the way it's going to work. It doesn't work for us. So a lot of times, a lot of things coming at you from all different directions. It's challenging, but at the same time, it's worth it, especially when you get to the finish line, when you see them, the look in their eyes when you ultimately deploy Workday. It's very satisfying as well. So you take away all their manual pain points, all their difficult, inefficient processes, and now they're starting to use Workday. So it's very satisfying. You'll get to work with many different people. It's different clients from different parts of the world, basically. Could be from the US, Europe, Africa, a lot of different clients. So a lot of times I've also been able to travel previously. Obviously now travel is not allowed because of this coronavirus situation, but especially during design sessions, discovery sessions, we normally do it on site, on a sort of like a classroom type setting. And during testing as well, it's normally on site. We help them do their test, how they run the transactions, and then ultimately once they test it, if they find some questions, if they are stuck somewhere, if they have see some issues, we troubleshoot it with them, triage it with them, and then ultimately as well for go live when we deploy. So sometimes we are asked to go there and be on site for whenever questions someone may have, some of their senior managers have, or some employees may get stuck somewhere. So we provide support. So a lot of times right now with this situation, it's everything virtual at the moment. We go online on calls with them. A lot of calls happening at the moment. So that's the current situation. There's a lot of different roles as well. You could be a functional or data or integrations expert. You could be a project manager or delivery manager. If you're good with estimations or doing demos, if you're good with sales, there's certain roles for it, and solutions architect, for example. If you like working on training, you could be a training consultant or a testing consultant. It's really, it's up to you to drive what you want in terms of your Workday career. It's a lot of many different options. And then outside of the main project, there's a lot of activities also. We, for example, help create new assets. We don't stop with trying to improve, trying to learn new things. As I mentioned earlier, Workday releases features every now and then. So we, as consultants, we never stop learning as well. We learn all those new features, make sure that our knowledge is up to date. So whenever we talk to our clients, we have updated information about the product. We can give advice, give recommendations to them. And then we also help new consultants coming in. So we build the practice. We try to progress our practice and help our new consultants learn Workday as well. So a lot of things coming together, a lot of different activities every day. It's never boring, as what I've been doing for the past couple of years now. That's actually the end of my presentation. We'll pause here to see if there are any questions from anyone. Okay. Okay, so we have one question here. The question is, let me just publish this. How do I know if it's published? Okay, so the question is, the backend looks interesting. Is HR experience background a prerequisite to be able to join Workday? I would say no. Everything can be learned based from my experience as well. Is it all configuration that, hold on. Is it all configuration if you're a consultant? The answer is also no. Some consultants don't do configuration. Sometimes we just partner with the client to understand the requirement, and sometimes we have consultants specific for only for training, for example. Sometimes we have consultants that does the pre-work, meaning trying to help the client harmonize their process before we implement Workday. So not everything is about configuration, actually. There's another question. So when we transition to the Workday system, will the historical information that is on our legacy system be moved? Any restrictions on historical data? So yes, if that is a requirement of the client, we have our data team, we have data consultants as well working with us during implementation to migrate client data, depending on how much. That's the question that the client would need to tell us. If it's 5 years worth, 10 years worth, I've seen some clients do everything. Move everything. They want to lift and shift everything to Workday. We can do that. So someone is doing Workday functional support at the moment. The question is, if I'm doing Workday functional support, what are the things that I should look for in terms of learning to do consulting work? So since you're doing functional support, I assume you already know the basics, know the concepts of Workday. So functional work is a little bit of both, knowing the product. So you should have product knowledge in terms of how the product works, how the product can be configured, customized in terms of making it fit the client, bridge the gap between the client's requirement and what we can do for Workday. And then ultimately have some experience as well, or be open in terms of facing clients, dealing directly with clients, talking with them, gathering their requirements, running some sessions, speaking in front, taking control of the audience, some sort of day-to-day tasks that you would normally do during consulting. Any other questions for us? We have a question here in terms of, does Workday offer payroll? Yes, we have a payroll module for Workday. It's currently allowed for use for certain countries only. So US, Canada, UK, just to name a few. But in terms of being able to integrate it with payroll, third-party systems. Workday does that a lot, so that's normally the case. We see that a lot in integrating Workday, sending information from Workday to our payroll third-party vendor or third-party application. Any advice or ideas that can be probably an approach from if you're switching from client side to a Workday consultant side. So yes, that's my personal journey as well. I came from a client side before. So basically, I think the real foundation is your knowledge for the product, knowledge for Workday. If you already have some good grasp of how Workday works, then if you're really interested, you just you learn it a lot, use it a lot, you know it, then that's really one key. And then ultimately learn the methodology, the items I mentioned earlier, some of the soft skills that's needed is really your presentation skills and communication skills when dealing with clients. We have a question about, do you accept applications for training consultants? Yes, we do. Just have to find the link. Hold on. Oops. Let me paste the link here. Here. So, okay. I think we're at the top of the hour. I think we can wrap up. Before we do that, I'd like to ask you to provide some feedback on tonight's session. If you can go on to menti.com. Let me paste it's menti.com, menti.com, and use the code 660089 to answer a really short survey, just to give us some feedback for tonight. All right. I think that's it. So thank you very much for your time, everyone. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you.